Everyone for joining us today and taking an hour out of your fast-paced day to sit in and check on the Civil 3D, what's new in Civil 3D 2017. So a couple of announcements I wanted to just go over, and that is coming up here starting August 1st, the ending of perpetual licenses excuse me, for suites is going away. And that, so basically between now and July 31st is, if you're interested in purchasing new perpetual licenses or have plans to grow in the next year or so, it is a time to probably talk to one of our account reps and discuss the changes that are happening. Now, this August 1st date that I mentioned is for all commercial users. This does not apply at this time to government users. So government accounts will make that this change, the same change, that will be February 1st of 2017. So you know, we're happy to you know, that was actually recently extended due to just a lot of questions related to government accounts. Okay, so what does this mean to you? Well, 2 years ago, Autodesk, you know, announced this. They are going to a term-based licensing model, similar to what Microsoft does, Adobe, and other software companies. Basically, most of you are on perpetual licenses, and that will remain intact as long as you renew your subscriptions, keep your subscriptions current. And so as long as you keep that current, everything will remain the same in your world. Nothing will change, and this is coming from the higher-ups at Autodesk that I've heard over the last 2 years. If your subscription does expire, then we have to have a conversation, and again, you know, you can reach out to me or one of our reps to discuss that further. Next slide. Okay, so, oh, we jumped. Can we go back? Okay, thank you. So now, a lot of you maybe have heard the announcement last week that the Autodesk AEC Collections is being released, and that is essentially AEC Collections is a combining of all the suites currently available. So right now that would be infrastructure, which includes Civil 3D, Map 3D, Revit, Navisworks, the building suite, which would include Revit, AutoCAD Architecture, AutoCAD MEP, Navisworks. Those are just a few samplings. I don't want to read the entire list. Also, Plant Suite is Plant 3D, PNID, and Navisworks. Those are sort of the flagship products of each one of those suites. So they are announcing that this will start on August 1st. You still will be able to purchase individual products. So for instance, if you want to use AutoCAD MEP or just Revit, you can purchase those as a term license for you know, however long. You can do it quarterly, yearly, 2 years, or 3-year terms. So those will be available. But there's been a lot of demand in the market at this point that really people want to use a lot of different things from different suites, and instead of buying different suites to cover their needs, you can now get them all into one package. Now, let's see. Let's go to the next slide, please. Okay. There's our friend Kevin. So I want to, Kevin and I have worked together for 14 years, and when I started in the Geomatics division 14 years ago, he was the first guy to greet me as I walked in the door. But Kevin is a great friend. He is renowned for his knowledge in Civil 3D and in the old days land development desktop. He is a sought-after speaker and throughout the Pacific Northwest and at Autodesk University and AutoCAD camps, and recently he actually spoke at the Washington State County Road Administration Board. So he is our anchor and on our tech team, and he's got lots of experience, and it's a pleasure to work with him. So I also, let me go to the next slide. I forgot to. Okay, so anyway, there was a slide that we had up. We can put that in later. The questions. Oh, okay. Well, we'll cover that at the end. Sorry. So without further ado, the heavy lifting will continue here with Mr. Closson, and I'll let you take it away. Thanks, Kevin.
Well, thank you, Jess. I like when they dug up this picture. I must be farming someplace. A big dumb grin on my face. That's pretty much me.
I think you were sweeping the parking lot.
Yeah, one of my many jobs. I probably got in trouble that day, so they sent me out with a broom, so it makes sense. But anyway, hey, welcome everybody. Thanks for taking a little bit of time with, or out of your morning and hanging out with us. I'm going to kind of give you an overview of the new functionality in 2017. Before that, though, I'll give you a quick little story here. Every year, this rolls around this time, and I'm kind of scrambling, looking for different pieces that are new in Civil 3D, and it's usually enhancements, that kind of thing, and many of you probably ran into that yourselves. However, this year I went down to actually went back to Chicago. There's this big, sort of I don't know, an internal Autodesk training for us, and a bunch of nerds like myself were all there, and we were watching, as they rolled out these new features to us. And I tell you this because we were really excited, and it's been the first time in a while that we were actually excited. They're really doing some neat things in the program, and they're going to be expanding on those in the future. So kind of maybe, again, I'll give you kind of a high overview of it, and then I'll kind of break it down and show you where these functions are within the program here. But for starters, this presentation, I have it broken down into 4 categories. So project management, usability, corridor modeling, and then the expansion of collaboration and data exchange. So starting with project management, we'll be breaking down these 5 individual categories. So reference styles utility, cache data reference surfaces, corridor data shortcuts, subfolders, and data referenced objects. That's a big one, very cool. And then also streamlined creation of data references. All right, so let's break it down a bit here, like I said. So the first one here is the reference external styles. Now, Peter Griffin thinks this is pretty cool. I do too. What this basically boils down to is the ability to complete a drawing. What you're seeing there in that first, I guess, top ribbon on the Manage tab, you'll notice over on the styles where that yellow arrow is, we have a new button, and it's called Reference. So as we all know, it's hard enough to get these project plans out. Often what we'll do is we'll start a drawing. We're using our in-house template, and then from there we need to convert it, whether it be going to an agency or another consultant or whatever it may be. So we end up having to go through this conversion process or importing data, whatever it may be. So anyway, what we're going to end up doing with this is a way where we can actually reference other templates while still staying in our current template. And we also have the ability to access other drawings with possible styles in it. So this not only is a great tool for the drafts folks, but it's also a great tool for CAD managers. So there's a little bit of something for everybody in here. And we'll get to that in just a little bit, like I said. Another new feature is the ability to cache surfaces. And what that's referencing is data shortcuts. So as you know, what was it, about 13, I can't remember, maybe it's 14 or 15, I can't remember, but the data shortcuts were kept within your drawing now when you go to send it to somebody, but the one piece that wasn't was the surfaces. So now you can actually cache it and send this out. And the whole, the whole concept of this is to, streamline the collaboration with others. And it's a very, very simple process, just a couple quick settings. And like I say, you send it out and you'll see that there's it'll come across. Now, this one was a big one, data shortcut folders. We now have the ability to create subfolders. And you'll see over here within the little, little screenshots here. Now, this is just in our data shortcuts. Notice that it says surfaces. One of the problems has been, I don't know if it's really a problem, it's just been something that we've had to work around or manage. When you would bring in data shortcuts, it just ends up giving, and maybe we're just talking surfaces, it would give you this great big long list of all of these surfaces, whether it be existing or phases or different designs, whatever it may be, and we didn't have an ability really to organize those. Well, now we can actually create folders, subfolders, directly in our prospector and again in the data shortcuts here, and we can just simply drag and drop those into their appropriate locations. So end result is obviously better organization, but also we can kind of emulate current project structures. Other little goodies here. Well, same thing really on the other side there. That's just talking about different alignments, whatever it may be. And of course, alignments can come in so many different forms. So another way to simply organize these. And I definitely give this one a thumbs up. You'll dig this. What else we got here?
Like a movie review.
Yeah, oh yeah. This is big time. And then what else we have here? Reference multiple data shortcuts. So idea here is, if you can see that on the screen back there, we actually have the ability to pick several data shortcuts at any given time. You can right click or you can drag them directly into your drawing, and what it does is it actually it'll do them all at one time. So I don't have to go in, I don't have to grab each one, drag it across, check it, re-import things, whatever it may be. We can just use a simple shift button, highlight several, and drag it right in. Also, when it comes to, say, alignments, profiles, all of that data comes in one shot as well. So you can kind of pick and choose. Well, maybe I should say that after the fact, you can always pick and choose. So very nice. And then finally, dealing with these corridor shortcuts, this is big. This gives us the ability now to create corridors with feature lines. Or sorry, I jumped ahead here. I tipped my cards to you here. Actually, this allows us now to do the short. I know, darn it. Well, I'm so excited. I'm so excited to get to it, and I just dawned on me. I'm like, oh, dang it. Anyway, well, there you go. That'll keep some of you tuned in, maybe. But anyway, corridor shortcuts. Traditionally, this was the one object that we couldn't kick out via data shortcuts. Now we can. It's just another option. You'll see. I'll point it out here as we go. But again, it just gives us the ability there to simply jump out and bring it right in, and you have complete control over it too once it's in your drawing. Just like all data shortcuts, we can't change it, but I can, like you can see there on the slide there, we can perform cut and fills and all kinds of stuff that what we traditionally do with a corridor. But again, we just can't change it. So no more just pulling across surfaces and things like that. We can actually bring the meat of the drawing. So anyway, let's maybe take a look at these first before I get too far along, kind of keep it as simple as possible. Whoops. Okay. So you'll notice 17 looks almost identical, and for the most part it is. However, let's start off with this reference external styles concept. And again, back in Chicago, this was the first thing that got the big oohs and ahs out of us nerds sitting there. So if I were to go start a drawing, like we always do here, and I'm going to browse out and grab one that I've already set up. And I renamed, this is actually just Autodesk's template, but for simplicity, I named it Company Template. So if I grab that and say open, and this is going to be, you know, many of you know this one, it's just got all the traditional Autodesk styles in it. Expand them out just so you can kind of see it here. Check. And in particular, maybe I'll create an alignment. So here's alignment styles, and there you go. That's all the traditional ones. So what this tool does for us is I'll quickly create an alignment. And I'll leave it as I'll just leave it the default name. Alignment style proposed, sure. Label set, all labels, fair enough. I'll say OK. And I'll draw something in here with curves maybe. Okay, if I zoom in, and you can see that we have just nothing too fancy, just a simple alignment, again using Autodesk styles. All right, so now this new tool allows me the ability to, on our Manage tab here, and there's a new button. It's called Reference. So if I select that, you'll see that this right now just another form in the panorama pops up here. And what I want to go out and do is go grab this secondary template. Again, maybe this is something that we're trying to deliver this in. Again, you can do drawings or DWTs. And this one's called Project Template. Now before I'll go ahead and do it. So when I grab that, you'll see down here that it lists that information. And currently, if I expand this out a bit, one thing worth noting is it says that it's pending. It is reading this, but it's not actually invoked yet. Well, I created this, I just left the default name, but I used the default style called proposed. If it was a different name as far as the alignment object style, you could just switch it once this has been appended. But if not, I'll just go ahead and OK this or update this first. And you'll notice, hopefully you can see that on your screen there, how it changed. Now the reason being is that other template, the pseudo deliverable template or whatever, has the same proposed alignment name. And these little, if I just kind of highlight that, they call that a paperclip, and that's just letting us know that in fact you do have a different a template or whatever's used there. Okay, now I could switch that back or get rid of that, or maybe I want to do something like this. If I were to go back in, I'm going to actually open up that original template. And I'll look in that same folder there. And I'm going to grab the company template this time. And you can see here it says company template DWT. And if I go, say, to that alignment and grab the proposed style that we've been playing with here, and just for kicks here, I'm going to change it to, and I would never do it this way, but for speed, or maybe I'll make them some form of yellow. Fair enough. And if I save that, and I'll jump back to my other drawing. And if I bring that template back in, my screen is flickering. Actually, I'm going to do it a little differently, I think. I'll just call it Company 2. And let's see what this ended up playing out here in just a second. There we are. Oh, where did I save it? Darn it. All right, so here's what here was the last little piece I wanted to show with this is, again, I can load multiple templates, and I also have a hierarchy structure here. I'm going to update those first. And notice when I hit update, see how that went back to the original? Or at least to the one that I changed it to. If I go right back into that, I can grab whatever it may be, and just like other places of Civil 3D, we can jump around the old hierarchy, update it, and it's going to go right back. Very cool. Okay, so that is referencing external styles. Again, we can leave it as it originally was as far as starting our drawing from our template, and then we can bring in other drawings and or templates to finalize the design, just kind of cleaning up the whole process for us. Now, this one, very, very slick, not all that exciting, but very, very slick, is the caching surfaces. And all that ends up being, I started up a drawing here right before we were playing with this here, and I have a surface. And maybe I'll leave this same drawing up. And I'll save this. On my desktop there. And what I was going to do with this is maybe bring in just a, whatever, bring in a surface or whatever via data shortcuts. Any one of them will work. Okay. All right. So now if I were to save this out, and there's just a couple quick things to maybe show with this. If I were to save this out, or I can do it from either drawing, I guess. I didn't have to go through all that process. But again, if I save it and send it to somebody, the only thing that doesn't come across would be these surfaces. However, there is a new field or a new property field at the very bottom. Drag that across. There it is. All right, so by highlighting the header of surfaces, directly underneath that you'll see where it says there's my existing surface that I brought in, whatever. Here it is, data referenced status, and it says geometry stored in drawing. So if I save this out, that would end up being, kicked out with it. If I drop it down, you'll notice that there's another setting in there. It just says geometry stored, or sorry, reference only. So that's one location for it. And there's a couple other spots. To globally do this, it's probably worth noting, if this is something that you're always doing, sending these out, and you do want that surface to be cached and always be sent with the drawing, you can go up into your settings tab here under surfaces, and it's under commands, and it's create, and of course they all look the same. Create surface reference, edit that, and it's in here somewhere. I'm probably looking right at it. I may come back to that during questions or something like that, but it's well, I'll come back to it. I'm missing it. I should have had that a little more ironed out, but it is definitely in there, and we can save that out, and it'll, or actually we'll save it to the template, and every single time it would stay. We wouldn't have to keep redoing that setting every time. Okay, so moving on here, I don't want to, I got a limited amount of time here, but moving on, if I go back to this other drawing here that I'm playing with, and when you have a large drawing or a large project, and you see all these surfaces here, this is just up in the prospector, okay? We now have the ability to simply right click on these, and I can create a folder. And if we want to name this, say this was you can see that in this particular set there's several existing surfaces. So I could do something like, I don't know, I'll just call it EG for simplicity. And now you'll notice that there's an EG folder. I could create these, you know, who knows, possibly something like phase 1, phase 2, whatever. And then from there, these surfaces can simply be just drag and drop for organizational purposes, and it still behaves just like they always have. Where this really is nice, though, is down in your data shortcuts. And I mentioned that as we started this, data shortcuts have a tendency to, you know, expand quickly. You know, from multiple sources, you just keep kind of compiling data, and before you know it, you have this huge list of surfaces, alignments, profiles, whatever it may be. So again, it's nice. You can simply right-click, create a folder, call it whatever you want, and then organize it that way. So that was a big deal to us. And then from there, take it into whatever drawing it may be. From here, I can actually go to, and I mentioned this earlier, this is a big time saver. I can grab several entities at any given time, and I can either right-click and create the reference, or you can even drag and drop them right into your drawing. You can see where a couple different surfaces filled in, that kind of thing. Also, with your alignments, profiles, whatever it may be, again, we can grab several of these. Right click and drag them right in. Oh, come on. You can see where those filled in back there. So no more of having to do it one at a time. So fair enough. And now maybe lastly on this, and again this was a big one for us, was the old ability to kick out a data shortcut of a corridor. And there's really not a heck of a lot to it, pretty straightforward stuff. You can do the old manage, create a data shortcut, and if I go all the way to the bottom, you'll notice one of our options now is corridors. And if I wanted to, I could say, let's throw them all in the drawing at any given time, or all into that data structure or project. And now you'll notice that the button is here, expands out, perfect. And if I were to again jump over to a different drawing here, these corridors can be brought in same way. Right click, create reference. It'll take a second here and then it should compile. Very nice. Now, maybe just to explore it real quick, if I pick any one of these corridors and you go into corridor properties, again, there's not a lot we can do with it. However, we do have, as far as actually truly changing the design of it, but we can do everything that we've always done. We can create surfaces, we can create samples, we can get volumes, materials. You'll notice that there's a lot of it's grayed out if you see my screen there. Expand that out. Like I said, we can build surfaces directly on the fly. From that, bottom line is we just can't change it. But everything else is still available. Frequencies, targeting, all of that. Okay, so I'm going to jump back over here to my PowerPoint for just a moment. So again, these corridor shortcuts, big deal. And in fact, that was us. That picture was us. I took the picture. That was in Chicago when we found out about this.
I remember that.
Yeah, that was real champagne, real deal. All right, so moving along here, talking about the usability. These are, well, one's not that big of a deal, but it really became a nice feature. It actually, I believe it came out in 16 in one of the extensions, or it may have came in the service pack. But it's called the no site option for feature lines. Now, it could be a feature line or any type of object actually. And what it boils down to, for many of you that deal with feature lines, you know that if one entity crosses another and they're both on that same site, then they will interact with one another. Sometimes that's great. Sometimes it's not so great. And I'll show you here in just a second. And then maybe briefly, at least point you in the right direction with it, with the pressure pipe catalog. They finally added content for us, and that's a big deal. That's a huge deal. If I'm not mistaken, I think they have about 6 catalogs now. They've added in everything from hydrants and additional valves, appurtenances, what have you. So that's a big deal. So maybe just take a quick look back in our drawing. Well, actually, I'll save that, and I'll come back and do it all at once since we're kind of short on time here. And you can see there just talking about the no site features and then the expanded pipe parts catalog. Very nice. And jumping ahead here a little bit, talking corridor modeling. So with corridor modeling, here was the thing that I got all excited about. Was the feature as a corridor baseline. I'll leave it at that for now. But we also have corner cleanup, or actually I should say, well, it's an auto cleanup is what it should be. So if you have a tight bend, your design will automatically, the software knows now, and if you have a cross section or an assembly in there, it'll say, oh, this tight bend, or for that matter, an angle, it'll resolve that for us. So instead of getting those bow ties, which we've had to fight for years, it now mathematically figures out a way to resolve that for us. And then as far as extracting corridor features, we've always been able to do that, but now we have a workflow where we can grab all of them, or for that matter, whatever it is that you want. Every now and then you need to get this out to a contractor or a surveyor or something that needs these elevated lines. This, instead of going in and doing one at a time, I actually have a complete list that pops up and we can do them all. So talking about these just a little bit more, in fact I'll show you here, and this was the big one here, the feature line is a corridor baseline. What this will do is I don't have to actually create an alignment, a profile, and then apply the assembly that we've created. We can do it from an elevated feature line. In fact, you'll notice over here where that big red arrow is, as opposed to bouncing down that dialog box and grabbing the alignment and profile, we can do it directly from the feature line. So we'll just throw something in there just so you can see how it plays out. And that one gets the coveted
Drinking the Kool-Aid?
Well, maybe you can say drinking the Kool-Aid, but I just think, oh yeah, that was a very, very cool one. And then there's just a quick dialog box. I'll show you. I'll bounce out and show it to you here in just a second. All right, so let's maybe take a quick look at that. So we will start with the usability aspect of this. And with these feature lines, and you guys know this, it's nothing too exciting here, but I can draw in, say, a feature line in any old spot. I'll just say create a feature line from, I'll leave it on site 1. Actually, well, yeah, I will too. I'll leave it on site 1. I'll leave the rest of the information here, and then I'll just drop it in. Click, puts my old hash mark. I'll accept the surface's elevation, and then I'll move on to my next spot possibly. And again, I will accept the surface. All right, fair enough. So if I look at this thing, and we took a quick look at the editor on it, keeping it very, very simple, you can see we have a couple of different elevations. Now if I threw in, and I often will do this, where I'll throw in, say, I don't know, a quick polygon or something like that. And if I return this into a feature line, and I'll leave it on that same site. As I go down here, I'll assign some elevations to it. Maybe I'll make it 50 feet all the way around. Okay, if I grab both of these, and it looks pretty good to me at this stage of the game. If I grab both of these and took it into the old viewer, looks all right. But as soon as I drop that back, you'll see what that's doing. All right. So now, if that's what I wanted, that'd be great. But if I didn't want these two to interact, I'd have to copy one to a different surface, or not to a surface, but to a different site or whatever. Well, now during that creation process, instead of doing it like that, I can actually create these. In fact, I'll just grab this one here. Whoops. I'll grab that one there, and I'll move it to the none site. So you'll notice that this is built in now. And we've had this for a little while in 16. Like I said, it came in late, but now it's built in. And if I, again, apply that, take both of those real quick into a viewer just to prove our theory there, and lo and behold, cool. So very nice. All right. So again, with this whole concept of feature lines, we now can, like I said, we can also build corridors directly from this thing. So if I were to just dump in, say, remember this has an elevation and a horizontal position. If I just brought in a quick assembly, I'll just say basic assembly and dump it in somewhere. Oops. And let's apply that and see how it plays out. So I'll create a quick corridor. I'll leave it default name, which I never do, but for speed I will. And as I kind of walk down this thing, this time I'm going to say feature line. If I had it named, or I could just go out and grab it. Oops, sorry, grabbed the wrong one. Site, I'll leave it on. I can leave that as none. Here's the feature line. I'll pick that. I'll go out and grab it. And just like we used to do, we can just, like as if it was an assembly, I'll just say road 1. And that's going to take it back. There's that, renamed it, the assembly type. I'll just grab the one that I threw in there real quick. And if I can even target the surface if I wanted to. And then let's see what we get. Ta-da! Now, very, very beneficial if, in fact, say it's a site plan. In fact, that's really where this tool is going to shine. I no longer have to create the alignment, organize all of my alignments, sample, create profiles, and sometimes you have to. I mean, it might be a little easier with more control, but this is just a fantastic way to quickly get this all in place. Okay, and let's see, what else do I got here? I'm getting close to the end here, and I want to leave time for questions. Jumping out here just for a second. Corridor cleanup. We talked about that a little bit. You can see there, I'll just show it up here. There's not a lot to see with this. But when you have a tight angle, the software recognizes that, and it's going to see, instead of getting the bow tie, it's going to do its best to resolve it. I would say, of course, I'm not telling anybody anything that you don't know. Check it, right? I have played with it a bit, and I have ran into a couple of little hiccups here and there, nothing too major. But I found that if you start and stop at, say, an exact angle point, you may run into a couple of, I don't know, problems there. So what I've done is I've started just beyond or past a feature line if I have like a tight angle like this. All right. And then just kind of something I was going to cover, this might be another webcast, talking about exporting. We now have the ability to also export corridor solids, which we've had, but we can actually apply property sets. And this kind of expands later, and it's really the same tool, but with this tool, I guess what makes it kind of slick though is you can actually put in mathematical calculations, or and later as it gets into, say, Navisworks, as for those of you that use Navisworks, once you bring that solid in, you can hover over it, and it'll actually tell you like what volume's inside of it. And often this is going to somebody that may not be on the engineering or the survey side. So as they bring in your design, they can actually get real time, well, not quite real time, but they can actually get those volumes as they highlight them. And that actually kind of leads me right into the collaboration and data exchange here. So you can see there on this slide, there's the top one there, that's exactly what we're looking at. That's a corridor that's been applied, and you can see there's some different colors there. And I'll point it out, there's not a lot to it. You just say export out a solid, and then you'll see where you have the ability to immediately add whatever kind of property that you want. And then finally, that cross workflow with a roundabout. This is actually for Autodesk or InfraWorks 360. They've streamlined the process a bit, and I'll kind of try to quickly go through this as best I can. Okay, so maybe talking about this before I actually show it. So Autodesk InfraWorks 360, if you haven't dabbled in it, it's a great tool. It gives us the ability to do preliminary designs. It'll give us some preliminary grading, everything else. And what they have on the screen there, I just took a couple screenshots. It started out as a raw piece of land, and they just connected using InfraWorks and put the road in, and it actually does do a preliminary design that uses appropriate AASHTO tables and everything else. Well, once they are connected and they just snap and connect, then you can automatically put in a roundabout just by picking the intersection. From there, you can use what they call a bounding box and say, okay, in this area, let's kick out an IMX file. And you can bring that directly into Civil 3D. At this stage, surfaces, all of that will come in, and then what you'll have the ability, now this is if in fact we were looking at that, roundabout, it's taken into that next slide. Once that is imported in, you can see that you have complete control over it. And I don't know, for those of you that use vehicle tracking, this is the tool that it's using. Okay, so once that roundabout comes from InfraWorks, we then have the ability to click on it and actually do the full processing of that or fine-tuning of it. In fact, for speed here, I'm up against the end here. All right, so you can see I already imported it, but just again to kind of hit some of those high notes there is one, move that over. If I were to bring this into, say, a blank drawing, it's nothing more, it's just insert, and you go up to InfraWorks, and this is where you would bring in that IMX file that was created back in InfraWorks, okay? That data would come in, and it would give us this, which, like I said, this is modeled using the vehicle tracking tools. And if you were to look at that just as a quick view of it, there we are. You can see there it is. So that's everything that was used, okay? Now, this can be, like I said, this can be edited just by simply grabbing it when it highlights here. There it is. And I can go right into the properties of it. And for those of you that have dabbled with the vehicle tracking, which is really picking up in popularity for several reasons. It's not just used now in the civil side. A lot of the architects are picking it up, and they're having it, or they're using it for just tests as far as where building go, can trucks make it in, what have you. But as you look around here, you have complete control. Gives you a nice interface. The different arms that are coming off that and everything that you can add to it. Okay, and then maybe just as a quick cleanup here for a couple of other quick things on this, we were talking about the I just wanted to show a couple things with the corridors real quick, if nothing else. If I pick that corridor, I was talking about the extracting solids, which we've always been able to do. It takes a second here, and I'll just say all. And if nothing else, I wanted to point it out at the end here where it says layer name template. If I can get in there. Here's where we can go in. We can start actually assigning. Well, actually, this is how we layer it. And here's where we can go in and start assigning that property data. Okay, and you can even put equations in there, whatever it may be. And then you're sending that out wherever it goes, and then whoever brings it in is going to have those capabilities. And then finally, and I'll open it up for questions, any one of these corridors can be selected. And we can do feature lines from corridors. And I'll just say all. And if you remember, prior to this, we would have to go in and pick each one at a time, and then import those into your drawing. Now I'm not going to do it here, but that's everything in this one corridor here. But you can see you can pick and choose. You can turn them all off and then go through it and kind of pick and choose which ones you want to come in. And at the end of it, the whole thing comes in. So very, very nice. Huge time savers. All right. So lastly here, so what we talked about, project management, usability, the corridors, all the new corridor functionality, and then collaboration between tools. And in every release, we're seeing our world getting closer or deeper into the BIM concept. And I'm going to pop up a couple last slides. If there's any questions, I'll start going through them, and I could even take some of these offline as well. But if you need to get a hold of us, if you want to see more in depth as opposed to sort of an overview of everything, give us a shout. Lastly, I know, Jesse, did you want to?
Yeah, just there's been a lot of questions regarding the licensing changes, and I'm happy to answer anything that you need to know. You can call the 800 number posted up here or email me, and I can explain or put you in contact with your territory rep. So feel free to reach out anytime and discuss this with me. Thank you.
On behalf of Jesse and Kevin and myself, we want to thank you for attending our webinar. If this is your second, third, or fourth of our series, we thank you for that as well. Please visit our website and check out the You're Invited tab. That's where we post all upcoming webcasts and live events. And again, I hope to see you at our pub crawl in June. Guys, any last comments?
Thank you for joining us.
Make it to the pub crawl. That's fun.
Yeah.
It's very fun.
Okay, great. Thanks so much and have a wonderful day.